Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Friar Pezzle. We are going to have another Friarside Chat, and I have a super good friend with us, which makes me super extra happy, coming to you from Middle Earth. My dear lovely friend Janet Williams, how are you doing this lovely evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Very, very good. So how are things in Middle Earth?
Well, we've been having a lovely summer, that I will say. So it's Sunday night when we're recording this, so who wants
Yes,
to go to work tomorrow, but never mind.
that's fine.
We've still got a bit of light, so it's nice.
Nice. They're picking up your garbage and everything's great.
They're picking up the garbage now, yes. It's not too bad.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you're happy and safe and warm, clearly, and all the good things. So I would like you to tell our lovely viewers a bit more about yourself, somewhat of your educational background, the things that interest you.
Sure. So I'm an occupational therapist, which is obviously very traditional training. I've worked for 34 years as an occupational therapist now.
Okay.
And when I did my A-level exams, which if there are any Brits will understand, that I did a very unusual combination of subjects for the time. I was one of those odd people that did arts and science mix.
Okay.
And I think that it was unusual. There were only a handful of people that did that. So I did psychology, biology, and English studies. I didn't know then what I'd really end up being into. And oddly, based on what we're talking about today, I didn't get a very good chemistry grade. And yes, that's something that I've really worked on. But anyway, so I started out as an occupational therapist, and it's a different sort of profession in the sense that there are more freedoms allowed in the practice, if you see what I mean. You have to work in such a way that you don't do anything off the wall. Like in any profession, you have to do established practice that's
Okay.
not so different from what anyone else is doing, or you can end up in trouble. Certainly when I trained, it felt like you had quite a free rein, and in terms of therapy. And you still do have now to an extent, as long as your practice is informed. And I was always very interested in the combination of biology, psychology, and later illness, and how illness was affected by all of those things. Now, I know you know my background, and we do have a bit of fun with this, don't we? Because
Yes.
being brought up in England, which has been sometimes classified as the least religious country in the world, it's quite interesting. And I was actually brought up unashamedly atheist. And I think that was it was a lot to do with my father, in all honesty. He thought that religion was ridiculous. And even though he was a very intuitive man, he had a very reductionist model. You know, things were genetic, everything could be explained scientifically.
Right.
And so I was sort of pushed into this one-sided view that the two, science and spirituality, couldn't meet
Of course.
at all. And it certainly robbed me as I was growing up that we were all just bunches of chemicals. I mean, there was no Father Christmas. There was no,
Oh,
for all that, there was no fundamentalism going on, and there wasn't. There kind of was, because we had this very, my father was a surgeon, so everything could be, reduced down into concrete
right.
facts, which is kind of tough. There was no, there was no Easter bunnies, there were no angels, stop that
Right.
kind of thing. But in any event, I mean, saying that, I certainly grew up with a lot of books, and my dad actually did believe in things like telepathy, which kind of was interesting. But I think that stage of his training was sort of this post-Victorian reductionism kind of robbed everything. It just took the colour away from everything. It
Sure.
took the sun away, you know, really. And so, but in any event, I really enjoyed traditional science. But then when I started practicing, I realised, as many practitioners do, that you can't separate the people that you treat from where they are socially, where their psychology is, what they're passionate about. Are they isolated? Do they have support? What do they want? You know, and that their illnesses would express so much about them and what they were going through.
Okay.
And within my training, I learnt within the occupational therapy training, I'm not sure so much what it's like now, but we would learn about teaching people correct breathing techniques.
All right.
It was just one facet of the course. And when I look back, it was done very, very simply. And I've since learnt it, you know, much more. Well, I've learnt much, much more about it. And so, cut a long story short, later on, once I had my own, I don't mind telling you this, and I don't
Okay.
mind telling anybody else this, but I experienced my own illness in my early 20s,
All
which was
right.
a lot to do with isolation, being bullied at work, just kind of an intense loneliness and not knowing what I was supposed to be doing and chasing the wrong dream in a way. And that was in my early 20s. And I went off work with anxiety and fatigue quite very severely, actually. And I got kind of put into the chronic fatigue classification
Gotcha.
of illness. Now, I got better from that, and it took me quite a lot of time. But the thing that really, really got me better was use of breathing techniques. That was
Huh.
absolutely fundamental in helping me to get better. And so, I mean, obviously, not everyone is the same as me. My history was my history. And a lot of people do have similar problems. They get burnout, they have panic attacks, they have lots of strange, unpleasant symptoms where anxiety is mixed in and they don't know what's wrong necessarily. That was just the approach that was taken with me. So as time went on, having had that experience, I looked around me and saw lots of other people and people that I was seeing that had a similar problem. And so they would often come to me because, especially when I worked with older adults of working age, they would have quite subtle problems, such as panic attacks, muscle pain, dry mouth, blurred vision, numbness, and no one could really explain what was wrong. Or that they would just be told that it was anxiety. Now, bearing in mind, this is many years ago now, and since then, things have advanced somewhat.
Okay.
And so, just kind of tying in, those people were, or many people can be identified now and are identified as having hyperventilation syndrome. So that kind of became my passion because I knew about it, I'd experienced it, and there was so much work to do in that area. It was astonishing, really. And then, of course, as especially now, these days, I don't know whether it's just social media or YouTube, the fact we're just talking to people, or whether there's just an evolution, but everybody's talking about breathing retraining. Everybody. And it seems to me, so you've got the kind of pathological side, which is over breathing, hyperventilation disorder, not necessarily full-blown panic attacks, but is making people ill, or stress, when people go off with stress, right? So put very simply, that's it. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of the spiritual community talking about the benefits of yoga.
Right.
What does it do? So I used to get really frustrated because, being a sciencey person, and probably I was hearing my father in my ear the whole of my adult life saying,
Right.
scientific, be scientific. I made it my mission to look at spiritual practices involved in breathing and work out why it worked. How does this
Right.
thing work, right? We know it works, but let's bring the two things together. Let's bring science and art and well-being and meditation together. Why not?
Okay.
And then the deeper I got in the weeds, the more I thought, gosh, this is really kind of complicated. And I used to, because I'm such a nerd, I used to try and explain to people what was happening to their chemistry. And as they were getting better from breathing badly and then breathing well, and, the chi, and I still don't know, and please forgive me,
That's
and
fine.
into yoga, because like I know the chemistry back to front, but I don't know a lot of the other words that are used to describe it. So I had many cases over the years, and some of the simplest ones were people who would experience a severe panic at work. I mean, that's the most common experience. And you're stuck at your desk, or you've got a presentation, or you've got to stay still in a particular environment, and you're starting to feel dizzy, feel panicky, feel unpleasant, sometimes for no reason. And how do you deal with that? What do you do to stop those terrible feelings? And we really just have the approach, or certainly we used to, of calm down, nothing really bad's going to happen, you're going to be okay. And it was only ever treated psychologically.
Right.
And there are limitations to that, because telling somebody that they're fine is not what they want to hear in the full throes of a panic attack,
No.
because
Or
it doesn't work.
just breathe. Your favorite phrase in the world.
Oh.
Just breathe.
We'll come on to that. Yeah, definitely. Just breathe. Because, well, we might as well talk about it now. Someone who is having a panic attack does not need to be told to breathe. Right? They
Really?
just don't. Right? The problem is they feel like they can't breathe. And what they need to do is the opposite of what they think they need to do.
Okay.
And so, keeping this sort of as straightforward as I can, I think a lot of your listeners will be familiar with the exhale, of the yoga exhale, to extending the exhale,
Yes.
which is in every spiritual breathing practice that there is to slow the exhale. Now, oddly enough, some of the sciencey type approaches don't do that. They do it slightly differently. But again, there's so many different types of breathing techniques. There's all the different kinds of yoga. There's, to mention two that I know of, Qigong and the Buteyko technique, which is used for asthma.
Oh.
Which is a very well-known technique. Now, there are so many. I mean, I learned the Papworth breathing technique, which was used in cardiology. That doesn't really emphasize so much on the exhale. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. There's no counting involved.
Okay.
So, to come back to this again, I wanted to understand why it was that the exhale makes you feel better. What are we actually doing? And it never ceases to amaze me, because now you can measure it physiologically. If somebody's set up with a capnometer and a capnometer reading.
What is that?
Oh, sorry, yes. So a capnometer measures your blood chemistry.
Okay.
And it measures through the breath directly what's happening inside the body. So I cannot tell you what an amazing thing it is to see on a graph, on the computer, the screen, whatever it is you're looking at. Because during the process of an exhale, your body holds on to carbon dioxide, and through the process of raising the carbon dioxide levels, especially to someone who's not very well, does absolutely amazing things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is me with the common question, which would be, hey, I thought when I was breathing, I was supposed to be getting oxygen, and if I breathe more and faster, I'm getting more oxygen, right?
That is the biggest lie ever told. One of the
Okay.
biggest lies ever told. So I'm glad you've got me onto this, because this is the bit that I like. With a few exceptions, there are people out there who can't breathe enough that are on oxygen. Don't get me wrong. There are people out there that need plumbed in oxygen. But
Okay.
on the whole, 98% of the population have got enough oxygen in their bodies and don't need to hyperventilate. But that's what people do when they panic, and that's what they do when they're stressed. It's ubiquitous in the population, this dreadful, these horrible, panicky, chronic feelings, and the problem is that, well, it just manifests in so many different ways. It's easy when people feel anxiety, but people get it for other reasons, which we can talk about. So coming back to your point, we have two great enormous lungs which are designed to run away from lions, right?
Right.
So there shouldn't be a problem getting enough air. I remember learning, and I always laugh because I do find it funny, and I don't want to offend anyone, but sick building syndrome is described when people say, I can't get any air, I've got to get out, I've got to get some air. There is plenty of air. There is more air than we could ever need, really, in terms of oxygen. The problem is, if you're over breathing, so if you're in the early stages of a panic attack, or you're feeling panicky or anxious or phobic or what have you, the oxygen is attached to the hemoglobin of the body very well.
Okay.
So you if they took your blood in that state, it'd be all nice and red, and your red blood cells would be oxygenated, because that's a sign of oxygenation. So it should be. The problem is the oxygen isn't getting where it needs to go.
Okay.
So it's not being dropped off in the brain, in the skin. You can look really pale. You might have cold hands and feet chronically. There could be all kinds of things that are going wrong with you, right?
Okay. So I would call that, being an absolute layperson, cellular access to oxygen, maybe, or
Right.
something like that.
Yes, that is true. So the oxygen doesn't drop off the hemoglobin because the body chemistry is messed up.
Okay.
That's just keeping it simple. And the process of hyperventilation results in vasoconstriction, which is a constriction, which also contributes to things like irritable bowel, Raynaud's phenomenon. It just kind of overlays a lot of things.
Okay. Vasoconstriction. So my vasos are constricted. What is a vaso?
Right, your blood vessels constrict.
Okay.
So now it is, because we can't really see what's going on in the body. These are just words, right? And I think for a long time, the breathing has been kept in the spiritual zone. Do it if it makes you feel better, love. Do you know what I mean? But it's not really what's happening. And so,
Okay.
right, because that's what you would get. Oh, just calm down and just breathe. Like you said, just breathe, which really annoys me. So ironically, the faster you breathe, the less oxygen you get. And that is a fact. If you breathe more than you need, it's not going to help you. It is not going to help you. You need to breathe biologically according to the activity that you're undertaking.
Okay.
So if you're at rest, if you don't want to be panting, You don't want to be, or even a chronic excess of breathing, which is generally speaking caused by stress, but it can then become chronic and habitual. And you remove the stressor, somebody's still breathing badly and they're still getting a lot of symptoms very often, and a lot of odd and strange symptoms. So if anybody's ever heard of fat folder syndrome, anybody that's worked in health, it's had a really bad name actually, fat folder syndrome, because now it gets used to say, oh, somebody's a hypochondriac because they've got fat folder syndrome.
And by this you mean their folder, which is the thing that contains their medical history, is fat.
Yes, it's fat because no one can find out what's wrong with them.
Okay.
Because nothing is desperately seriously wrong, but they feel like absolute crap and they know something's wrong and they keep going to the doctor, and it works out that they're hyperventilating because of chronic stress, most likely, and nobody's ever been bothered to look at it in that way.
All right. I know that the Golden Dawn uses a modified breathing technique for relaxation, which does work. It's the box breathing, or the 4x4, or the fourfold breath, as it's called. There's also various pranayama techniques, which means so prana is energy. So in this theory, you are working on your energy body, right? Which is in these theories, you have like your physical body is called the food body because it's made of food. You eat food, and that's what it's made of.
And then, okay.
And then you have the energy body, right? And then there's other bodies, nested within that, like a Russian doll. But so the health benefits are attributed to the idea that you are manipulating your energy body, because it is seen in these theories that it is energy and its imbalances that cause physical maladies. Just bringing some little bit of history in it. We don't have to expand on it too much.
That makes sense, actually. It does make sense from a biological point of view.
Okay.
Because this is the paradox with breathing retraining, is less is more. And the box breathing is one of those things which lengthens the exhale.
Right.
So if you look at breathing like a pump, you breathe in, you breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out. You're actually causing a lot of gaseous exchange in your body, but you're pumping out what you would normally hold on to. When you're going really fast like that, you're actually disturbing your chemistry. So that the thing that I'm leading up to really is the benefits of the exhale.
It just dawned on me, actually, like there is an absorption time. There's got to be an absorption time.
There is, but it's very quick.
Okay.
I mean, it happens pretty much instantaneously. If you take a breath in, the moment your lungs are filled, that oxygen is attaching itself to blood, and it doesn't take long at all. The problem is that you're not only breathing in oxygen, but on the out breath, you're breathing out your carbon dioxide. Now, that's good. Anybody who studied biology will know that oxygen good, carbon dioxide bad, right? That's what you taught.
Unless you're a plant.
And yes, no, it's the opposite. Listen, this stuff can get you into such a knot, and it's taken me years, and I can't tell you. But anyway, coming back to the carbon dioxide,
Yes.
you need to hold on to an optimum amount of carbon dioxide.
See, I'm telling you right now, that is going to be news to 99% of the people listening.
That's right. But if you get any anaesthetists that watch your show, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because when you're in anaesthetics, that CO2 has to be spot on. Yeah, it's not just about, like, if anybody knows any physical therapists, they will, or theatre nurses, they're going to know, right? And it's a shame, really, because I don't think that ordinary people are trusted with complicated information always, because of the apparent paradox, because of the apparent conflict people don't stay with it, you know.
Right.
And it's such a shame. Your carbon dioxide levels will determine the pH of your entire body.
Aha, now we're getting onto another
Yeah,
factor.
including hormone production, you name it. So rather than because it is mind-blowingly complicated, and these, you know, we've got to have fun with this, right? So,
Yes, because what I'd like to do a little later is to walk through a panic attack one piece at a time
right, yeah,
and examine what's going on at each stage.
that's fine, yeah. And then
Okay.
what you do to stop one, which is
Right.
really the crux of it all. So yeah,
But
it's all
please
very well
continue.
studying it. That's right. So in the process of getting enough oxygen, which is easy, by the way, we've got to hold on to a certain amount of carbon dioxide, not all of it, but a certain amount. Unless, of course, you're exercising, then your CO2 is going to build up more. It has to be the correct level. The optimum CO2 in the body, there is, and I always forget the absolute numbers, but any any advanced physiology book will talk about this, and certainly the information is out there. It's not
Right.
a quacky thing that I'm talking about. It is absolutely well established science. It's
Oh,
sweet.
nothing you said has sounded quacky in the least.
Oh, well, that's good. That's really good, because and let's talk about panic attacks at night, because that is really interesting. That is really,
Mm.
really interesting. So the exhale. So I have been asked, one of the things that I get asked a lot is, again, coming back to the exhale, how does the exhale work? What does it do? What does this exhale do that's so great? So I am building up to that one.
Okay.
Now, when you're feeling panicky and dreadful and your skin's pale and you're white and you're clammy and you're nasty, that's an opposite experience, would you agree, from the process of exercising and running and feeling good, and your face is flushed and
Right.
you're
True.
feeling great, right?
True. And also that pallor, as you describe it, that paleness,
Yes,
that also reminds me of someone who's just about to barf.
yes, yes. Well, nausea is a symptom of anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah. But
The,
that when people turn white and almost green and you're like, "Oh boy."
yes,
Uh-oh.
I mean, it's horrible. And I think that the whole, if I ever see anyone panicking, I just want to jump in and give them some breathing techniques.
Right.
Because
Just breathe.
oh God, yeah. Oh, there's nothing wrong. Just calm down.
Oh.
Anybody who's had that said to them will know what I'm talking about. So all the sort of techniques. Let's talk about a yoga breath now. Let's keep it nice and simple. Let's do a pursed lips breathing technique.
Okay. I was going to read you the actual
Ah,
breathing
okay.
technique out of the Golden Dawn's first knowledge lecture.
Great. Go. Let's see.
Okay? I'm
Yeah.
going to I'm going
Yeah.
to read this word for word. The simplest rhythm for the beginner is the fourfold breath. First step, empty the lungs and remain thus while counting 4. Second step, inhale, counting 4 so that you feel filled with breath to the throat. Step 3, hold this breath while counting 4. Step 4, exhale, counting 4 till the lungs are empty. This should be practiced counting slowly or quickly till you obtain a rhythm that suits you, one that is comforting and stilling. Having attained thus, count the breath for 2 to 3 minutes. So do, repetitions of this till you feel quiet. Then proceed with the meditation. That's straight out of the black brick, kids. Can't buy this information.
Yeah, you see, that's good. I like it. Yeah, that's great. Because what you're doing, so what you're doing from a scientific, if we just look at it from the body chemistry perspective, what you're doing is you're preparing. So you're just preparing for the breath, aren't you? You're still,
Yes.
and then you breathe in for the count of 4. I don't use that, by the way, but it doesn't matter. This is the Golden Dawn. So you then hold it and then you breathe out. So in effect, the breath in is the 4 seconds. That's when all your gaseous exchange occurs. Then your blood's all getting oxygenated, then brilliant. And then as you exhale,
So you hold it for 4. So everything, it's like breathe in for 4,
right.
hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4.
So you're holding for 4. So to me, that's the same as extending the exhale, because you're holding for 4 and then you're exhaling for 4. So
Right.
you're not working the pump, or rather, that's an inhale or a hold for 4. An inhale for 4, and then you've got a hold and an exhale for what would count as 8, really, wouldn't it? Because you've got
Right. Yeah.
4 plus 8. So that second part lasts longer than the first part.
It
So,
does, because you've got hold, exhale, hold.
right. Now that's brilliant, because this is a much misunderstood thing. I don't know if people are going to understand this necessarily, because it took me a really long time, but I'm going to give it a go. As you breathe out, as you hold or exhale, you've stopped the pump. You've stopped the pump, and what happens is your body keeps metabolizing CO2, but instead of pushing it all out, you're doing a really slow, long push out. And the whole time while you're doing the push out of the CO2, and you're keeping that exhale really long or longer, or the hold and the exhale is longer than the inhale, your body's busy in the process of respiration, raising the CO2 in the whole of the body, and that oxygen that you've breathed in is now getting where it needs to go. So you are going to feel relaxed and at peace and concentrate better and feel good, because your body's working properly.
Gotcha.
And it hasn't been. So I do like that technique. It's a little bit different, because what we're talking about is the hold, but it doesn't matter. So some people get told to stop a panic attack, all they have to do is hold their breath, and that's true, but it's a very unnatural and unpleasant way of doing it.
Right.
Something like the yoga breathing, the box breathing, let alone the things you can do like singing and humming and whistling and things like that, anything to lengthen that exhale. So that's the thing, by the process of metabolism, not only have you got oxygen, you've got your oxygen, you've just breathed in, but also by raising your CO2, you raise your CO2 by prolonging the exhale, because the CO2 is building up in your body. You're not breathing fast anymore. When you exercise, you breathe fast because you need to get rid of the CO2. You do need to get rid of it.
Right.
But when you're at rest, you're not producing very much, so your breathing should slow down.
Okay.
But it doesn't when you're panicky.
Now,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Right.
Right. So now I'll say this too. Swami Sarvapriyananda, who I of course adore, he was talking about a technique. It was a proper pranayama technique. It was some crazy hold. It was like breathe in for 4, hold for 16. I was like,
You can
dude.
do it. Listen, I have friends who I've sent them some of my gadgets. I used to have more than one gadget to help people do this. And she could do, because she did yoga as well, she could do 2 breaths a minute, which is yoga master level,
Yeah, that's like corpse breathing.
It is. But the irony is, this just goes to show how much oxygen you've actually got in your body, which is astronomical. Like, your body is amazing. It's not a problem of oxygen. It's not a problem of getting enough air. It all comes down to regulating this particular gas of CO2. It's
Right.
to do with regulating it. And that's what the exhale does. And it's such a shame, because that is so fundamental to all spiritual methods. And yet it's not, we don't, I don't know if you find this, but what my biggest frustration, as you know, is that ordinary people don't get trusted with real science.
True. Yeah, you're right. In fact, I think a lot about the fact that when people think about an atom, the first image that comes to mind is a planetary model, which is not the model. It hasn't been the model for over 100 years in actual science. But we still think about, you got a nucleus and you have these orbital electrons going around like the planets. And like, no,
And
no.
isn't it such a shame the way that what we've done to people, and this idea that when you have a panic attack, it's all in your head. I mean, I don't think that people, oh God, it's just horrible.
I would say that saying that it's all in your head is incorrect. However, I do think there are probably mental components.
Yeah, sure.
But not the whole of it.
That's true. And I think that yeah. I mean, there are methods, obviously. I mean, what you do, if anybody can think, this sort of stereotype of someone having a panic attack is breathe into a paper bag, right?
Right. The classic paper bag, yeah.
Now, and how that works is that if you've got a paper bag, you breathe out into the paper bag, and then the point being is that when you breathe in what's in the bag, that's all you'll breathe out CO2. So you get this huge wave of CO2 back into your system.
Okay.
So that's how that works, because the point, if you are having a paper bag will work. I mean, there have been criticisms of it in the sense that, can you really get a good enough seal on the paper bag? Well, probably not, but I can see why that would work. I don't think it would exist as a piece of advice if it didn't work.
And it's a classic, yeah.
It's a classic, but who, when they're panicking, wants to be seen breathing into a paper bag? I mean,
right. Well, now there's the fire breathers. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
No.
Which is, so the plastic party cups that you buy in bulk, to have your your Hindu or whatever, your party. What they do is they'll cut the bottom out of one of them and they'll attach crepe paper streamers to the bottom of it and they'll, usually it's for kids, and they're like, hey, you're freaking out. I want you to use the fire breather and you can breathe fire. And so they place the cup over their mouth and have them do a long exhale to make the streamers go. And then now they're a dragon making fire.
You see, I love that. Anything that lengthens the exhale, anything. I think the thing that upsets me, as you well know, is this breathe thing.
Just breathe.
All you're doing is you're getting people to do it more. You're getting people to start that pump off. And I know I'm sort of swizzling my fingers, but it's just to get it's just to get the point across, because it's not easy to understand. But once you do get the hang of it, you'll know why you're working on the exhale. You'll know why you're doing that, and coming back to measuring it scientifically, you can absolutely measure that scientifically. Like when you look at what you're actually doing in terms of the internal chemistry, it is real. It is absolutely real and tangible.
That's what the capnometer is measuring, right?
That's what the capnometer measures.
Okay. So, what are the things that the capnometer measures? I'm just curious now.
I mean, it's been a while since I had a capnometer. Mine long since packed up, and I didn't get another one because they are quite expensive. In your breath, you can measure exactly what's going on in the body.
Okay.
So there are some really fancy capnometers you can buy, and breathing trainers. And I know, and this isn't a plug because I haven't seen him for 20 years, Peter Litchfield, you can find him on the internet. I'm not saying you go and buy his capnometer, but he does some really fancy capnometer breathing retraining methods, which are amazing. But it's sort of fallen into the biofeedback measurements, if you see what I mean.
Okay. Yeah, I do.
Right. So it's all part of that.
All right. So a biofeedback machine. So I did some biofeedback stuff, and they slipped a thing onto one of my fingers. Right. They didn't cut me open and implant anything. Sorry, Elon. They just they just slipped a thing over my finger, and what it was measuring was my pulse rate, my galvanic skin response, which
Yeah.
is the how well my skin conducts electricity, which is based on how much I'm sweating or micro sweating, I guess. What was it? And temperature, because your temperature at the extremes of your body changes depending on whether or not you're in a kind of survival response or you're relaxed. So a higher temperature would mean relaxation. A lower temperature would mean I'm conserving blood at my core.
Yes, that's right. And with the vasodilation that you're creating, your blood is getting where it needs to go.
Yes.
So the blood gets where it needs to go, the oxygen gets dropped off, and you had what was probably an oxiometer, I always forget what it's called, that measures the oxygen at the surface. I might have got that wrong. I can't.
It's okay.
The pulse rate in any event, you want a nice strong pulse. That's what
Gotcha.
we're looking at. Yeah. And that's what you want. You want blood at the extremities, oxygen dropped off at the extremities, a sense of relaxation. And so coming back to the question of the capnometer, we have the ability now to measure it with a huge level of accuracy. And you'll have, and I know with this particular breathing retraining, you'll have a ball and you'll breathe, and the ball will move up and down,
Oh,
and you take it up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's designed so that you optimize your CO2 to the absolute correct levels, the optimum levels.
okay.
And if you do that enough times, your respiratory center readjusts completely, like it resets itself, and your propensity for panic goes right down.
Gotcha.
It's a brilliant device. I mean, there's plenty of capnometers you can get a hold of, but that one I remember was portable. I mean, mine wasn't very robust. It was wonderful while I had it. But you don't, to be fair, you don't need something like that. You don't need something that sophisticated to do people good. You know, I mean, one-to-one breathing retraining can be tricky because you're teaching methods like the box breathing,
Right.
and that's been around. I remember, I mean, obviously it's been around much longer than I have because we're talking about something ancient, aren't we?
Yeah.
I remember learning about it in the 80s, you know, the box breathing. What there is an argument that you have to do it enough to really lower that CO2, and that your brain needs to also adapt. For someone who's doing it chronically, they need to do quite a lot of it. And
Okay.
did you ever find, like, people that you've done it with, just out of curiosity, do people ever feel uncomfortable? Do they report any, like, a good, bad feeling? Do they ever report anything
Nope.
like that? No.
No. I've never had any problems in my work with my clients at the 4x4 box breathing stage.
Right. And I'm really glad to hear that. And I suppose one of the things that can happen, and it doesn't always happen, but and I think some of there are authors which do talk about it. Dinah Bradley is one of them, who's an amazing author. She talks about how when you first start to slow the breathing, you actually feel like you're not getting enough air, but you are, because this comes back to the paradox that we're talking about. That
Okay.
that in the initial stages, you'll feel a sense of hunger for breath, but at the same time, you also feel at peace as well. So it
Hmm.
depends how much of an issue there is there, but it's a case of adaptation to a better process, really.
Okay. No, I haven't had that. I have had occasionally, and because of what I actually use it's slightly modified. I'm using, believe it or not, a teal swan technique. Good old tealy bits. And I have people, when they do their inhale, I want people to, they expand their belly as they do it, and to fill the lungs to the point where you are almost breathing into your lower back. Or, I mean, obviously you don't have lungs there, but that's there's a sort of pressure sensation that happens there. And occasionally, and I've had it happen to me, I don't think it's bad. I will feel a tingling up my spine or on my spine or at the base of my spine or on my face, which I think is super interesting.
That is really interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, there's so much there. Because, for example, I have had very occasionally a case where I had a lady who didn't breathe diaphragmatically at all.
Okay.
She was really a terrible hyperventilator. Like her situation was really, really tough, and there were other issues. The breathing went part way, but there were other things going on, and that I couldn't really help her with. But I remember that she didn't breathe diaphragmatically, and when she started using her diaphragm, it actually hurt her.
Yeah, I knew somebody that was the case with because of a back injury from an automobile accident.
Now that's interesting as well, because I have treated people with chronic back pain with breathing, and that it has massively helped them.
Okay.
But that's an interesting point, because that goes into the whole realms of back problems, doesn't it? Which is fascinating.
Sure.
But I wonder about the lower back, because the diaphragm's positioned beneath the rib cage, and it's just this massive muscle, and it would make sense that as that's moving as it should, you're going to disrupt the structures a little bit if somebody's very rigid. And classically, as we people with chronic back pain, it's the movement that often hurts. I know we tell people to walk around and stuff, but actually the initial movements can be quite painful. So that's an interesting one. So if you, like, I obviously have done the sort of less non-spiritual breathing methods, which do the same thing, that there's just less counting, or it's less of a method. You try and get people to breathe in a more natural way that can be carried over. So, for example, you would lie, but the Papworth breathing technique, and I might be corrupting this a little bit. So
It's all right.
what you do is you lie, the stillness that you describe, you said to me, like, corpse breathing.
Yes.
I'm going to say, so you neither breathe in nor you breathe out. So you don't breathe in and you don't breathe out. You do neither of those things, which is really hard, by the way. If you're a habitual breather or a hyperventilator, there's so much intention in your breath that you don't want. This is really strange. And I used to teach like this, and it's amazing. So if somebody does nothing, they don't breathe in or don't breathe out, and they often think, oh, what if I don't breathe? I'm going to die, right? And what they don't realise is that your body will reflexively kick in when you need to breathe. That's what we want to happen, ideally. So someone doesn't breathe in and they don't breathe out and they just lie there. As a therapist, you hover your hand over the diaphragm, or you can, with their permission, obviously, if you're a hands-on therapist, you place the hand there. Now you tell the person to wait. Remove all the intention, to wait for the breath to come. So they neither breathe in nor they breathe out. And then what will happen is that the diaphragm will spontaneously raise reflexively and draw the breath in without any upper chest movement, nothing, just the reflex. And that happens when you're asleep. If you think about it, you've got no intention in your breath when you're asleep.
Right. Or the heart or anything else.
That's right. It all just works. Right. So that's what you want to happen in the day as well. And do you remember we had this conversation, didn't we, a while ago? When I meet people in my job who are centenarians,
Yes.
they breathe like that. And that's why they last so long.
Like
I'm
almost
sure.
imperceptibly.
Imperceptibly, no upper chest, their diaphragm's going. And I know they are, because I know when I meet them, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with that person. I bet you they breathe perfectly.
By the way, for our American viewers, centenarian means someone who is 100 or older.
Yeah, yeah, they really know how to breathe, and they don't even know they know how to breathe, but they'll be doing it like that, you know.
Right. Let's walk through a panic attack piece by piece.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to start with uh, the bit before, which is to say, there has to be some sort of distress, whether real or perceived, right?
Right.
So it generally starts with some level of distress.
Yeah.
And then, so what happens next? The very next piece.
So the very next piece is there's a psychological trigger, and then the person starts to breathe more rapidly,
Okay.
fairly instantly, actually.
So now, sort of freezing that piece, what's happening when you start breathing? And would you describe that as fast and shallow?
I mean, some people breathe shallowly when they hyperventilate. Very often it's both.
Okay. Because having had one, I do remember, or more than one, let me tell you, I remember the sort of the denouement of it, like as I was aware of my breathing, I started towards the end of it because I was like, oh my God, I can't get any air. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. I
Yeah.
started breathing harder, intentionally bigger, right? Just
Yes.
like I can't get any air.
Yes.
All
Get
that.
more air. Get more air. Yeah. And
Okay.
yet you felt worse, I bet.
Oh, did I ever?
Yeah.
So
So,
we started with threat or bad, whatever, real or imagined. Now we've
right.
altered the breathing. We've altered the breathing to too fast, perhaps too shallow, but in the main, not good breathing. Although we're going to get around to the idea that it is good breathing for a certain purpose. But please, let's go ahead.
Okay. So the sensation comes, you start breathing faster. You feel like you can't get enough air. You breathe even faster and it gets worse and worse and worse because the opposite happens. The opposite thing happens from what you want to happen. So
Right.
your body wants more oxygen, so you breathe faster. The problem is that though your blood is oxygenated, it's not getting where it needs to go. You become what they call hypocapnic. So you haven't got enough. If you haven't got enough carbon dioxide in your body, and for anybody who doubts this, look up hypocapnia because that is a phenomenon that is definitely real. So you become technically hypocapnic.
Okay.
And so now people can get odd dissociations when they become hypocapnic. So the oxygen to this is my theory on it, but there's no other way I can explain it. So they can become dissociated, dizzy, they can faint, they lose the ability to concentrate entirely. Really, that will happen in an extreme panic attack.
Okay.
Now, this is me theorizing really because I actually think that sometimes the oxygen you can deoxygenate, so people can get blurred vision. Their vision starts getting patchy.
But
Um,
does that happen instantly or kind of later as you sort of stew in this bad condition?
I would say as it gets worse,
Okay.
yes. Now, for myself, when I've had a panic, I had one really, really severe panic attack. And I remember that happening. And I remember being oddly dissociated. And I remember watching my chest just heaving and going,
Right.
oh my God, look at that. You know, I was just not concentrating on what was happening. And then it just sort of passed. Now, I, d- I am so attuned now to if I ever feel panicking, which isn't very often these days, I would use go straight into my yoga practices,
Okay.
slips, whatever, until it goes. You know, I
Be-
just keep doing it until it
be-
goes,
because
right?
you're aware of it. right?
because I'm aware of it. I don't know how a lot of people's panic attacks end, whether somehow they're reassured because of the mental things they're telling themselves, or that there is enough air, or maybe they just get out of a place where they feel claustrophobic, which is, I know, another thing we've talked about. So,
Yes. So let's talk about our scenario a little bit here, right?
right,
Let's include the idea that this person having the panic attack is in an enclosed, let's say they're on a bus. They can't get off the bus. The bus is
right,
moving. They can't get off the, or maybe a Ferris wheel, or the London Eye, or something
right.
like that.
Yeah,
They're in a situation they can't get out of.
right. So first of all, they're in a stressful situation because they've gone on the Ferris wheel for a bet because they're scared of heights, and now
Right.
it's got too far, you know, and
Right.
that, so they're already feeling anxious, and they're imagining that the all kinds of things about this ride, right? That we can make it really
Mm-hmm.
extra
Yeah.
exciting. And they're also jammed up next to two people, one either
Right.
side, and they can't move. That's a terrible combination.
Yeah. Or an
God.
elevator.
Yeah, somewhere where they can't, or an MRI machine, like we were discussing before. That's horrendous. So the point
Yeah.
is that,
Jeez.
right, so they can't move. So it's good. It's a good point, actually, because if you're having a panic attack in the supermarket, you just leave the store, right? You just get out. But
Right.
and then you feel like you get enough air and you're not feeling so together. So yes, this is my theory about being enclosed. Being enclosed, you're breathing rapidly, your body can't make CO2. You People have described to me a sensation that their body is flying apart and they're
Wow.
exploding from the inside.
And they just got to get out of here. I
And
just
they've
got to
got to
get
get
out of
out,
here.
and they don't know where, they don't know how, but it's just awful. And I believe that that is a compunction to create more CO2, because by running, they make more CO2. Their body's automatically re-regulated because
Right.
the breathing matches what it is that they're actually physically doing
So
instead of sitting still.
here's where I'm going to try to synthesize some of this stuff. And you and I have talked about this a bit before, um, off camera. So if these managed breathing techniques like the Golden Dawn 4x4 or the pranayama or what have you, if these things induce relaxation, then the opposite style of breathing would induce a type of agitation. Now,
Definitely.
here's where I'm going to circle back around to my comment that maybe the body is actually doing the right thing. Threat shows
Yeah.
up. Let's say an actual literal threat shows up. Okay.
Yes.
And now your body, recognizing the threat, starts preparing itself for flight by virtue of this breathing, so that you are prepared to leg it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you're not trapped in an enclosed space, and you can in fact get away.
Yes.
And so everything kind of worked as designed. Where does it go wrong? Well, if the threat is, I don't know, a letter saying that your uncle died,
Right.
and you're now in an enclosed space of some kind, albeit, it could be your living room, or it could be a car or a bus or whatever.
Yes.
And your body says, oh, threat, I know what to do with threats. I'm going to get you ready to run.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then you can't run.
Yes. You can't run because you're wedged in a taxi.
Right.
Right. So you can actually, I remember you coming up with this insight, and it really is a missing piece, because to be honest, I haven't heard anyone express it in these terms, but it makes complete sense biologically. Threats millennia ago were to do with being chased by a predator.
Yeah.
And so
And
you better run, right?
and
Because
we had what, like close to 300,000 years of that being the norm.
right. So there were no letters from the taxman,
No.
no no bailiff hanging around outside the door when we were pretending not to be in, you know?
Right.
Like, you that's so true. And I think, when we're told the body has a purpose for everything that it does,
Yes.
I truly believe that. And you actually helped me with this because I thought, why is the body so flawed that we're panting with anxiety in a situation? Why are we doing that? Why? There's no reason to run, but actually, you've explained that to me because there was a reason to run. Your breathing's pumped, get the oxygen in, now you're going to run. Now you're running around is going to match your breathing, right?
Right. And this reason that causes this initial uh, breathing change, it could also be entirely mental. In other words, you could just be dwelling on a thing in your brain so much that you kick your body into that response.
Oh, 100%. And like we've said before, and we've talked about this, haven't we, off camera, is that anxiety is a thing that hasn't happened yet.
True.
So you can be anxious about anything, usually pertaining to the future.
Right.
It's not even there, and you're not going to be in an ideal situation. You know, people get a lot of anxiety at night. They mull over things. They're in bed. No, I will relax. That's how they're thinking, and they're trying not to toss and turn. And yet that's exactly what they're doing, which comes back to your point. So yes, it is difficult, I must admit, for me to put myself back in a place as to when the panic attack ends, because I don't know really. I think if we're talking about somebody who's wedged in and you're feeling panicky, you're probably going to have to wait till the end of that ride when you can get off and think, "Oh my God, thank God that's over. I'm going to just take a stroll." You know?
So this is going to maybe sound weird, but what about crying it out in terms of that altering because if you're crying, that's a change of state, right? And there's a different
Yeah.
type of breathing.
I think so. And actually, if you think when you're sobbing, there is a lot of exhale in that, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of sighing, right?
A lot of a lot. I mean, I think crying does certain things, yawning does certain things as well.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't know so much about crying. I'm not as knowledgeable as that. I do think that people will feel better after crying, you know, if they can allow themselves to cry sometimes. It's definitely not a bad thing. And I think it does benefit you physiologically, or it wouldn't happen. That's
Well,
what I think anyway.
crying is a lot like singing, but with tears and bad feelings.
Yeah. But the certainly from a spiritual sense, from the books that I've read, when I've heard it, just crying actually stops you hitting the lowest part that you can go,
Okay.
which I find from a psychological perspective. I mean, I know if you're in the throes of that, it's hard to imagine anything worse, but actually, it stops you hitting the deck, really.
So if we were to say it was some sort of self-soothing mechanism of some type,
Yeah,
then that would be sort of how that panic attack situation could peter out. And oddly enough, it reminds me of something. I think it was Sri Ramakrishna said this, either that or Vivekananda, but they were talking about basically to call God. If you want to really effectively call God for comfort, you cry to God as a child would cry to its mother, like with tears and everything. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, it just makes me think. Well, if crying is relaxing, then there could be something to that too.
I think that there really is. I mean, obviously, there's more than one facet here, but you're talking
Sure.
about a cry, aren't you? It's a cry, it's a song, it's an exhale. It's an outward
Long,
release, isn't it?
yeah, with long tones, right? As we say
Right,
in
right.
music. And
I mean,
so, and of course the wailing and the grieving that happens in certain cultures
yes,
around funerals, right? That's a type of relief and release too.
yes, yeah, definitely, definitely. And that's the way I like to look at things. And thank you, Friar, because you've put a real piece in my head, which it wasn't previously in my head. I mean, from all the people that I've seen and helped over the years, a lot of what they need is just that understanding that they're not weird or flaky, or they can never get better, or they're weak. There's so many people that who they are in distress. Telling people that it's normal, and it's I mean, it's not normal, you don't want them to be like that, but that it's understandable why their body's doing this.
Yeah, the wisdom of the body.
That's right.
And we try to interfere with that because it's inconvenient
Yes.
or
Yes.
whatever,
Or
or
we
it's
try and, yeah.
socially unacceptable. Like, calm down, man. You're
Yes, calm down. Just what's wrong with you? Calm down, and there's nothing bad's going to happen. And,
right.
you'll be fine. We've got to get this scan done. Got to get the scan done. So,
My lunch break's coming up, and
do you mind? I've got a queue. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's other subjects which are perhaps more controversial regarding the wisdom of the body and what it does, and the ways in which we see some of the body's actions as harmful when they're not. And I'm thinking of things like cholesterol.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole, like, goodness, this is just such a massive subject, isn't it?
It is.
So the pH of the body and CO2 are, you can't, they're just so absolutely connected. So,
Yeah.
but my personal, it is personal. If I say this, I think that everything we experience in outer life in terms of stress, any stressor whatsoever, any circumstance that affects the breathing, to me, it's the gateway in. It is the mind body link. When you think that that's it,
Well, yeah.
the pH of the body determines all hormone production, your blood flow, all manner of things.
Yeah, and so it is the gateway in. The yogic stuff, the first thing you do is you learn to control the breath, because it's the easiest link between the automatic functions of the body and you taking control of one of those.
Right.
Right.
And optimize your health. We talk about it all the time, don't we? Optimize your health and you can cope with so much more. Like, if you've got a good baseline, your homeostasis is on an even keel, you can cope with much more in the way of onslaught. You really can. You're much more robust with
Yes.
the breathing.
Resilient. I'm so
Resilient.
resilient.
Yeah, and you are. And if somebody's breathing has been disordered for a really long time, so chronic stressors for years, you remove those stressors, somebody still has disordered breathing, those are the easiest cases to get right. Those are the ones where you have the greatest effect. And when I've done breathing retraining with people whose PTSD is past, really, a lot of the threats are gone, they're not current. Like they've been through this terrible time, but now they've got away from, say, an abusive partner, they've got their own place, life should be good, but they still feel ill, they're still getting panicky. That's when breathing retraining comes into its own, because biologically it's fairly easy to deal with, as long as you're also doing something about the stressors. Because I know we've talked about this as well, haven't we, that somebody who's having constant panic attacks because they're in an abusive relationship or they're being bullied at work, they do still need to do that. They can't yoga their way out of that once they're in it, and I really do believe that they have to consider it in the context of their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard to arrest things once, like, I guess, to make an extreme example of it, like, if you're falling off a cliff, you're along for the ride at this point.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's true.
can't really fix that one.
Yeah.
So best not to let things get so far.
But the fact that there's a purpose, like you say, that I'd never worked out before. I'd never thought, right, maybe the breathing does just start kicking in really fast because subconsciously you've picked up the threat, right? There's a lion. Your boss is going to walk in, right? But your
Yeah.
whole system sees that as a lion for the attack.
And
And you
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
I clearly remember the sensation of like, man, I just got to get out of here. I just got to get out of here. I have got to get out of here.
Right. And yet we call it a phobia, don't we? Which
Yeah.
is ridiculous. Nobody's frightened of a MRI machine, right? Actually
No.
frightened of it, but it gets called a phobia. Isn't it
Right.
funny? Things are a phobia. God, I'll never forget this. The problem I had. I remember this. I can say this because obviously I won't breach any confidences here. But I
Sure.
remember a lady having travelled a really, really long way to see me, and I was working on the 14th floor, and she couldn't get in the lift. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to be able to help you because you can't get in the lift, and that's where my clinic room is. And it was horrible, really. I felt like I'd been such an idiot because I hadn't really thought through her difficulty. Because no amount of me going, come on, it'll be all right.
Right.
Come on, got to do this. She
You're
travelled
just
a really long way.
you're just lift phobic. Come on.
I know, you're just frightened of. She's not frightened of the lift. She's
Just
frightened
breathe.
what's going to happen when she's in the lift to her, which is a different thing.
Right.
It's like all these phobic things, aren't they, that aren't actually frightened of anything, really. But the point, I know, I remember what happened. I had to see her in the security office. I had to kick the security guards out. I said, listen, I need a room. And I saw her
Wow.
then. It wasn't too bad in the end. But I remember thinking that was, I wasn't very proud of that moment, to be honest, that I hadn't thought that through, really. Yeah.
No, it's all right. Wow. I should probably mention nothing we say constitutes medical advice.
No, and please, can I just say, do not ever, and I mention this to absolutely everyone, never, ever, ever do forced hyperventilation on yourself, ever. Can I just say that, please?
You can say
That might
that.
need to go. That don't do it because it's really dangerous. I'm just saying that. Don't ever think I'm going to sit here and breathe too much and see what happens. Don't do it. Right. I'm going
Okay.
to there.
There you go. If you're running and you might be breathing a lot, it's a different story.
Go and take a walk if you want to run, but don't please do any of that forced because please.
Nothing we say, yes, nothing we say constitutes medical advice.
No, don't do it.
Just covering that.
Yeah.
Well, we've been at it for more than an hour, and I don't
Right.
know if you feel like continuing or if you want to just leave it here. You are more than welcome to return to my show at any time.
Okay, we'll do a part two. Perhaps.
We can do a part two. And maybe in that part two we can walk through something similar, which is to say, I recently, and this is because I'm a weirdo, my neuro is a bit divergent here. I like to do things like journal my way through an emotional flashback, or get like really pay attention to myself if I'm having, an onset of a low mood. And I've managed to notice a few things by doing so. So we can walk through my caffeine induced doom sensations and
that would be interesting.
The things that came through there. But I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the show tonight from Middle Earth, from the West Midlands.
Yes. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So listen, everybody, thanks for watching. I hope you watched this whole thing because you got some good stuff. And I will see everybody next time. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye-bye.